The bright flash of the Vraxian ships entering Earth's atmosphere lit up the sky like lightning. It was the 5th time in as many months that the aliens had arrived without warning. Each time they landed their sleek silver crafts on the same spot outside the United Nations headquarters in New York. Each time, they made it clear they were not impressed by what they found on Earth. Major Frank Marshall stood at attention beside General Susan Carter as the Vraxian delegation approached. The aliens moved with an odd grace despite their massive size. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with greenish-gray exoskeletons and 4 arms, they made even the tallest humans look small and fragile. "They're early," General Carter whispered. "The summit wasn't scheduled until tomorrow." "They do this on purpose," Frank replied quietly. "They want us off balance." The lead Vraxian, Ambassador Cragg, stopped 10 feet away. His upper set of arms were folded across his armored chest, while his lower arms held a device that translated his clicking speech into English. "We have decided to move our meeting forward," Cragg announced without greeting. "Our High Command grows impatient with these slow negotiations." General Carter stepped forward with practiced calm. "Ambassador Cragg, we welcome you back to Earth. The United Nations Security Council is assembling as we speak." Cragg made a sound that the humans had learned was laughter, though it sounded more like stones grinding together. "Your Security Council. As if your planet needs such a thing when the Vraxian Dominion can provide true security." Frank felt his jaw tighten but kept his face neutral. 6 months ago, humanity had discovered they weren't alone in the universe. The Vraxians had appeared suddenly, revealing they had been watching Earth for decades. They offered what they called protection in exchange for resources and obedience. They were not asking. Inside the United Nations building, world leaders had gathered in record time. The main chamber hummed with nervous energy as Frank took his position near the stage. As military liaison to the diplomatic team, he was there to answer questions about Earth's defensive capabilities, what little they had against such advanced technology. President Eleanor Wilson of the United States took the podium first. "Ambassador Cragg, the nations of Earth have considered your proposal for a protectorate status. We have prepared a counteroffer that we believe—" "Counteroffer?" Cragg interrupted, his translator device making his voice sound flat and mechanical. "You misunderstand. We do not negotiate with developing worlds. We assess them and assign appropriate status." The Vraxian tapped something on his wrist device. A 3-dimensional hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing detailed scans of Earth's military bases, satellite systems, and defense installations. "Your species is soft," Cragg announced to the assembly. "You lack natural armor. Your muscles are weak. Your weapons are primitive. Your bodies break easily." He gestured to the hologram, which zoomed in on a human submarine. "This underwater vessel? Our children build better toys." Frank watched the room grow tense. Representatives from China, Russia, and several other military powers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Ambassador," President Wilson tried again. "Humanity has survived countless challenges. We've adapted to every environment on our planet. We've developed technology that—" Yes, Cragg waved a dismissive hand. "We have studied your history. You fight well against each other, but you have never faced anything like the Vraxian Dominion. We have conquered 12 star systems. Species far more advanced than yours now serve us." He tapped his device again. The hologram changed to show a comparison between Vraxian and human biology. "Your bones break under pressures that merely tickle our exoskeletons. Your skin tears when our hide deflects projectiles. Your muscles fatigue when ours are just warming up." Frank felt a burning in his chest as he watched the alien mock humanity's physical form. But what truly bothered him wasn't the insults, it was that Cragg wasn't wrong. Humans were physically outmatched. "We will allow you to exist as a protectorate," Cragg continued. "You will provide us with your water, certain minerals, and biological samples. In return, we will not destroy your civilization." The chamber erupted in outrage. The Secretary General banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. General Carter stepped forward. "Ambassador, perhaps a demonstration would help you better understand our capabilities." Craig's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Frank had learned meant amusement. Yes, show us these capabilities. At Carter's nod, Frank signaled to the technical team. The hologram shifted to display Earth's most advanced weapons systems, hypersonic missiles, laser defense platforms, the newest stealth aircraft. Cragg actually laughed out loud this time, a sound like rocks in a blender. Impressive for your technological level, but observe. He projected a new image showing a single Vraxian fighter craft. This small scout ship could defeat your entire air force. Your missiles would never reach our ships. Your lasers would reflect off our hulls. Frank watched the faces of the world leaders grow pale. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a sentencing hearing. Later that evening, Frank found General Carter alone in her office at the Pentagon. She was staring out the window at the stars, a glass of whiskey untouched on her desk. They're going to take whatever they want, aren't they? Frank asked. Carter turned, her face tired but her eyes still sharp. Not if I can help it. The president has authorized Project Longshot. Frank raised his eyebrows. The dimensional research? I thought that was theoretical. Not anymore. Dr. Alan Miller made a breakthrough last week. We've been keeping it quiet. She handed him a tablet displaying complex equations and energy readings. We can reach into parallel dimensions, maybe even into our own past, Frank stared at the data. You're not suggesting desperate times, Major. Carter took a sip of her whiskey. The Vraxians are right about one thing. We're outmatched physically and technologically. But humanity has produced some of the greatest military minds in history, strategists who won against impossible odds. You want to bring someone from the past to fight aliens? Frank couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Not just anyone. Carter pulled up a file on her tablet. A black and white photograph appeared, a stern-faced man in a World War I uniform. We need someone who understood how to win when outgunned and outmanned. Someone fearless, innovative, and utterly relentless. Frank read the name under the photograph. Major George S. Patton, Jr. The extraction team is preparing now, Carter said. If we succeed, the Vraxians will learn that humanity's greatest weapon has never been our bodies. She tapped the photograph. It's our refusal to accept defeat. Outside, one of the Vraxian ships passed overhead, its engines casting an eerie blue light through the window. Frank watched it disappear into the night sky and wondered if the aliens had any concept of what they had awakened on this small blue planet. The underground laboratory hummed with energy as Dr. Alan Miller made final adjustments to the dimensional portal. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. 30 scientists and engineers worked around him, their faces tense with concentration. This was humanity's biggest gamble. Power levels are stable, called out Dr. Kate Peterson from her monitoring station. Quantum field is aligning. Major Frank Marshall stood behind a protective barrier with General Carter, watching the preparations. He still couldn't quite believe what they were attempting. The plan to reach back in time and extract a historical figure seemed more like science fiction than military strategy. How certain are we that this will work? Frank asked quietly. Carter's expression remained neutral. Dr. Miller gives it a 60% chance of success, but even a small chance is better than surrender. The laboratory was located 200 feet beneath an old missile silo in Colorado. After the Vraxians' last visit, they had left 3 monitoring ships in Earth's orbit. The thick rock overhead helped hide the enormous energy signatures the experiment produced. Dr. Miller approached the barrier, his tablet displaying complex calculations. We're ready for the targeting sequence, General. Once we begin, we'll have about 90 seconds to complete the extraction before the dimensional rift becomes unstable. Carter nodded. Begin when ready, Doctor. Miller returned to the central platform where a circular metal ring 20 feet wide stood vertically. This was the gateway they had built using reverse-engineered concepts from recovered Vraxian technology. Initiating targeting sequence, Miller announced. Coordinates set. For France Saint-Mihiel sector, September 18, 1918. The date was carefully chosen. It was just after Major George Patton had led a successful tank attack during the Saint-Mihiel offensive in World War I. He had proven his tactical brilliance, but hadn't yet risen to the rank of general. The historians on the project believed this was the perfect moment to extract him, experienced enough to help but not so prominent that his disappearance would significantly alter history. The metal ring began to glow with a soft blue light. The air inside it shimmered like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Quantum field stabilizing, Kate reported. Temporal coordinates locked. Frank leaned forward, eyes fixed on the ring. Is it working? As if in answer, the air inside the ring suddenly flashed bright white. When the light faded, they could see what looked like a window into another world. Through it, they glimpsed a military tent with maps spread on a wooden table. A man in a World War I uniform stood with his back to them, writing in a notebook. That's him, whispered Dr. Miller. Major George Patton. Begin extraction, ordered Carter. Dr. Miller pressed a sequence of controls on his tablet. The portal expanded slightly, and tendrils of blue energy reached through toward the unsuspecting officer. Patton appears to be alone, Kate said. Optimal. Conditions for extraction. In the portal, Patton suddenly stiffened. He turned around, his hand moving to his sidearm. His eyes widened as he saw the strange light forming in his tent. He sees the portal, Frank said. Is that supposed to happen? Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red warning lights flashed as the portal's edges became unstable, pulsing and crackling with energy. Power surge, shouted Kate. The field is becoming unstable. Dr. Miller's fingers flew across his controls. Compensating. Don't abort. We're too close. Through the fluctuating portal, they could see Patton backing away, his pistol now drawn. But before he could fire, the blue energy tendrils wrapped around him. He struggled briefly, then vanished from the 1918 tent. The portal collapsed inward with a thunderous boom that shook the entire facility. Sparks flew from equipment panels. Emergency sprinklers activated, spraying water down on the chaos. For several seconds, only the sound of alarms and falling water filled the lab. Then, through the settling smoke, a figure appeared on the extraction platform. Major George S. Patton stood unsteadily, his uniform singed but intact. His service pistol was still clutched in his right hand. He looked around at the futuristic laboratory with a mixture of shock and determination. Where am I? And what in God's name just happened? He demanded, his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. General Carter stepped forward through the protective barrier. Major Patton, I'm General Susan Carter of the United States Armed Forces. You're still on Earth, but in the year 2085. We've brought you here because humanity faces an existential threat. Patton's eyes narrowed, taking in Carter's uniform, the advanced technology, and the faces watching him. What kind of trick is this? German spies? Not a trick, sir, Frank said, stepping forward. We've brought you through time because we need your help. Patton kept his pistol raised. Prove it. Dr. Miller activated a wall screen that displayed historical footage. The end of World War I, the Second World War, moon landings, the rise of digital technology, and finally, the arrival of the Vraxian ships. Patton watched in silence, his expression shifting from disbelief to wonder and finally to grim understanding. When the footage of Ambassador Craig mocking human weakness played, his jaw tightened visibly. That creature, Patton said, pointing at Craig's image. He's your enemy? The Vraxians have technology far beyond ours, Carter explained. They've conquered 12 star systems and now they want Earth. Patton holstered his pistol and approached the screen, studying the alien's form. They're bigger than us, stronger, better armed. A smile slowly spread across his face. But so were the Germans at Muzargon. Numbers and strength aren't everything in warfare. He turned to face the room full of scientists and military personnel. I don't understand your machines or how you brought me here, but I understand invaders who underestimate their opponents. Frank saw something change in the room. The tension of fear was being replaced by something else. A cautious hope. How many of these Vraxians are there? Patton asked. Their main fleet consists of 27 battle cruisers, Carter answered, each carrying approximately 500 warriors. Patton nodded, already calculating. And what resources do we have? We'll brief you fully, Carter said. But first, there's something you should see. She led Patton to a large viewing window on the east wall of the facility. As she pressed a button, armored shutters slid open to reveal the night sky. 3 bright objects moved in formation above the stars. Vraxian monitoring ships, Carter explained. They're watching us, deciding how best to take our world. Patton studied the ships for a long moment. They think humans are weak because our bodies break easily. He turned to Carter, his eyes reflecting the distant lights of the alien vessels. Let's show them that humanity's strength has never been in our bodies. Frank felt a chill run down his spine. For the first time since the aliens arrived, he felt something besides fear. The look in Patton's eyes was unmistakable. It was the look of a predator who had just spotted prey. The next 3 days passed in a blur of briefings and training. Major Patton absorbed information with remarkable speed, often asking questions that surprised even the scientists. He spent hours studying Vraxian biology, technology, and battle tactics. When he wasn't learning about the aliens, he was reviewing the last century of human military history. Frank found Patton in the facility's gym at 5 a.m. on the 4th day. The Major was doing push-ups with perfect form despite being over 160 years out of his time. "You're adapting well," Frank said, leaning against the doorway. Patton stood and wiped his face with a towel. "The weapons and technology have changed, but war remains war. Know your enemy, know yourself." Sun Tzu, Frank nodded. "The Art of War. Good book," Patton said with a slight smile. "Still relevant even with these space invaders." They walked together to the mess hall where several officers were already having breakfast. Conversation stopped when Patton entered. Despite efforts to keep his identity secret, word had spread throughout the base about the man from the past. "The Vraxians have requested another meeting," Frank said as they got coffee. "They want to discuss the terms of our surrender." Patton's eyes flashed. "And what does your General Carter plan to tell them?" "She wants your input before deciding." An hour later, they sat in the command center with General Carter and 5 other high-ranking officers. Satellite imagery of the Vraxian ships displayed on large screens around the room. "Ambassador Cragg is growing impatient," Carter explained. "Their scans have detected unusual energy readings from this facility. They suspect we're developing weapons." "Good," Patton said. "Let them worry." Lieutenant Olivia Jones, the intelligence officer assigned to brief Patton, pulled up new images. Their main battlecruiser has moved to a lower orbit. It could deploy ground forces within hours if they choose. Patton studied the images with intense focus. These aliens rely too much on their physical and technological superiority. They've grown overconfident. He stood and walked to the main display. "In 1918, we faced German forces who had better equipment, more experience, and entrenched positions. They thought these advantages made them invincible." He turned to face the room. They were wrong. Carter leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Major?" "We need to change the rules of engagement," Patton said. "The Vraxians expect a conventional response, either surrender or a desperate attack against their superior forces. We give them neither." He pointed to the image of Ambassador Cragg. "This alien mocks human weakness but doesn't understand human thinking. We're adaptable, creative, unpredictable." Patton outlined his plan over the next hour. By the time he finished, even the most skeptical officers were nodding in agreement. "It's risky," Carter said, "but it might work. We'll need to move quickly, before they get suspicious." "I want to meet them," Patton said. "Face to face." Carter raised her eyebrows. "You want to meet the Vraxians?" "Know your enemy," Patton repeated. "I've seen them on screens. I need to see how they move, how they react. I need to look them in their 4 eyes." Later that day, a message was sent to the Vraxian ships. Earth requested a small delegation meeting to discuss terms. The aliens agreed, setting the meeting for the following morning at the original landing site near the United Nations. As the sun rose over New York, 2 Vraxian shuttles descended from the monitoring ships. 8 warriors emerged, their exoskeletons gleaming in the morning light. Ambassador Cragg led them, his forearms moving with fluid grace as he approached the human delegation. General Carter stood at the front with Frank beside her. Patton waited, several steps behind, wearing a modern military uniform with no rank insignia. To the aliens, he would appear as just another human officer. General Carter, Cragg greeted, his translation device converting his clicks into English. I trust you have come to your senses about your planet's future. Ambassador, Carter replied coolly. We've been considering your proposal. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce Major Frank Marshall, whom you've met, and his tactical advisor. Patton stepped forward, his posture straight and eyes steady. A pleasure to meet you, Ambassador. Craig's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of mild surprise. You've brought new faces to admit defeat? Interesting. Not to admit defeat, Patton said calmly. To propose an alternative arrangement. The alien made the grinding sound that passed for laughter. There are no alternatives. You become a protectorate, or we take what we want by force. Patton studied the alien's movements, noting how his weight shifted, how his secondary arms twitched when he spoke. Your species values strength, correct? Strength is the foundation of the universe, Craig replied. The strong command, the weak obey. Then perhaps we could demonstrate our value, Patton suggested. A test of sorts. Craig's head tilted slightly. What kind of test? A military exercise, Patton said. A small force of your warriors against a small force of ours. Non-lethal combat to demonstrate skill rather than technology. The aliens' four eyes focused intently on Patton. You believe your soft bodies could match Vraxian warriors in combat, even without your weapons? We believe there's more to strength than hard shells, Patton said. He pointed to the Vraxian warriors standing behind Craig. Your soldiers train from birth, yes? From hatching, Craig corrected. 15 Earth years of combat training before. They earn warrior status. Impressive, Patton nodded. Our soldiers learn to adapt to any situation, any environment, any enemy. We think that's worth demonstrating before you decide our value. Frank watched the exchange with growing amazement. Patton spoke to the alien with confidence that bordered on arrogance, but it was working. The Vraxians respected boldness. Cragg conferred briefly with his warriors in their clicking language. Finally, he turned back to the humans. Your proposal intrigues me, the ambassador said. The High Command might find such a demonstration entertaining. We thought they might, Patton said with a slight smile. Very well. 8 of your best warriors against 8 of ours. Combat exoskeletons permitted for your fragile bodies, but no energy weapons or explosives. Location to be a neutral site. Perhaps your moon? Actually, Patton said, we were thinking of Mars. The terrain offers more tactical possibilities. Craig's secondary arms twitched rapidly, a sign of amusement. Mars, then, in 7 days. My son, Commander Drax, will lead our warriors. He leaned closer to Patton. They will crush your people. We look forward to the challenge, Patton replied, unflinching. As the Vraxians returned to their shuttles, Frank turned to Patton. Mars, combat exoskeletons? We don't have those things ready. We don't need their permission to bring weapons, Patton said quietly. And we don't need fancy suits to win this fight. General Carter joined them. You've bought us time, but how? Do you plan to defeat warriors with natural armor and twice our strength? Patton watched the alien shuttles rise into the sky. The same way humans have always defeated superior forces, with better strategy, better tactics, and the absolute refusal to consider defeat as an option. He turned to Carter with fire in his eyes. Now show me your best soldiers, we have work to do. The training room echoed with the sounds of combat. Patton watched as 8 soldiers practiced the techniques he had taught them. They moved in pairs, attacking and defending with practiced precision. After 5 days of intensive training, they were becoming the team he needed. Again, Patton ordered. Sergeant Martinez, you're still telegraphing your moves. Linda Martinez nodded and reset her position. At 5'4", she was the smallest member of the team, but her speed and accuracy with any weapon made her invaluable. Captain Russell, remember the blind spot pattern, Patton called out. They can't see directly behind their head crests. Paul Russell adjusted his approach. moving to exploit the weakness in Vraxian anatomy they had identified from studying footage of the aliens. The team consisted of the best soldiers Earth had to offer, Russell and Martinez, plus specialists Eric, Wade, Ben Collins, Sam Harris, Diane Foster, John Garcia, and Grace Kim. Each had been chosen for specific skills and adaptability. Frank entered the training room and approached Patton. "The Vraxians have sent the official rules for the exercise," he said, handing over a tablet. "They're allowing us to bring basic weapons, stun batons, capture nets, and shock darts." Patton scrolled through the document. "What about the combat environment?" "A region called Valles Marineris, a large canyon system. Atmospheric processors have been running there for decades as part of early terraforming efforts, so we won't need full pressure suits, just oxygen masks and thermal gear." Patton nodded, studying the terrain maps of Mars. "Perfect. The canyon gives us places to hide, climb, and set traps." He pointed to a section of the map. "These narrow passages will nullify their size advantage." Dr. Miller entered the training room carrying a case. "Major Patton, we've completed the countermeasures you requested." He opened the case to reveal 8 small devices, each the size of a coin. "These will jam Vraxian communications within 20 meters. They won't be able to coordinate with each other if you separate them." "Excellent," Patton said. "What about the other item?" Miller produced a second case containing what looked like ordinary pebbles. "Motion-activated sound emitters. They'll mimic movement and footsteps to confuse the Vraxian sensory organs." Frank looked concerned. "Is this cheating? We agreed to non-lethal combat without high technology." "It's strategy," Patton replied. "The Vraxians will use their natural advantages. We'll use ours, creativity and adaptability." He turned back to the training team. 10-minute break, then we run the canyon simulation again." As the soldiers grabbed water bottles, Patton stepped closer to Frank. "How are the public taking the news of the challenge?" "Videos of your meeting with Craig went viral," Frank said. "People are calling you humanity's champion. There are watch parties planned around the world for the live broadcast from Mars." Patton frowned. "I didn't come here for fame." "No, but you've given people hope. For the first time since the Vraxians arrived, humans are standing up instead of just accepting their demands." The night before departure, Patton couldn't sleep. He stood at the window of his quarters looking at the stars. So much had changed since 1918. The world he knew was long gone, yet here he was, still fighting. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. General Carter entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might be awake," she said, offering him a cup. "Thank you." Patton took a sip. "Your world is strange to me, General. Flying cars, instant communication across the planet, machines that think like people. But war never changes." Carter nodded. "That's why we brought you here. We have the technology, but we needed someone who understands the true nature of conflict. The Vraxians don't respect humans because they see only our physical weaknesses," Patton said. "Tomorrow we teach them about our strengths." The next morning, the team boarded the transport ship to Mars. The journey would take just 12 hours, thanks to the new fusion drives, another marvel that amazed Patton. He spent most of the trip studying final reports on Vraxian combat techniques and reviewing his battle plan with the team. "Commander Drax will be their leader," he told his soldiers as they gathered in the ship's briefing room. "From what we know, he's aggressive and arrogant, even by Vraxian standards. He'll expect us to fight conventionally, strength against strength, which is exactly what we won't do," Captain Russell added with a smile. "Correct," Patton said. "We'll use their expectations against them. They think they know human capabilities based on our physical limitations. They don't understand that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our minds." Martinez raised her hand. "Sir, what if they change the rules when we arrive? They could have weapons we don't know about." "They might," Patton acknowledged. "But remember, this isn't just a competition for them. It's entertainment. The Vraxian High Command will be watching. Krog has staked his reputation on this demonstration. If they cheat, obviously, they lose face." As the ship began its descent to the Martian surface, Patton felt the familiar calm that always came before battle. No matter the enemy, no matter the century, this feeling remained the same. The landing pad was situated at the edge of Valles Marineris. 2 Vraxian ships were already there, their sleek designs contrasting with the rugged Martian landscape. As the human team disembarked, they saw 8 Vraxian warriors standing in formation beside their ships. Commander Drax stepped forward as the humans approached. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his exoskeleton darker and more ornate than the others, decorated with symbols of past victories. "Humans," he greeted them, his translator making his voice sound almost musical. "I am Commander Drax. Today you will learn the true meaning of strength." Patton stepped forward to meet him. "Commander, we look forward to an honorable contest." Drax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "There is no honor in defeating the weak. There is only entertainment." He gestured to a small hovering device. "This will broadcast our exercise to both our worlds. The rules are simple. Disable your opponents without killing them. The team with the last warrior standing wins." "Understood," Patton said. "You have 1 hour to prepare," Drax continued. "The exercise begins when the sun touches the canyon wall." He pointed to where the Martian sun was slowly descending toward the massive cliff face of Valles Marineris. As the Vraxians returned to their ships, Frank approached Patton. "They're confident." "Good," Patton replied. "Confidence becomes overconfidence. Overconfidence becomes carelessness." He turned to his team. "Get your gear ready. We have 1 hour to place our surprises in the canyon." The human team donned their lightweight thermal suits and oxygen masks. Each carried the allowed weapons, stun batons and shock darts, plus the special devices Dr. Miller had created. As they checked their equipment one last time, Patton gathered them in a circle. "Gentlemen and ladies," he said, his eyes moving from face to face. "Today, we fight not just for victory in a training exercise, but for humanity's place among the stars. These aliens believe us weak because our skin tears easily and our bones break. They fail to understand that humanity's greatest strength has never been our bodies but our indomitable will." The team stood straighter, drawing strength from his words. "Remember your training," Patton continued. "Stick to the plan, separate them, confuse them, and when the moment comes," he smiled, a predator's smile, "show them what humans can do." The Martian sun crept closer to the canyon wall. The time for talk was over. The time for action had come. The Martian sun touched the canyon wall. A signal chimed, echoing across the red landscape. The exercise had begun. Both teams moved into Valles Marineris from opposite ends. The human team wore lightweight thermal suits with clear masks that supplied oxygen in the thin Martian atmosphere. The Vraxians needed no such protection. Their exoskeletons could handle the cold and low pressure. Patton led his team into the maze of rock formations and narrow passages. Their footsteps kicked up small clouds of red dust as they moved deeper into the canyon. "Remember the plan," Patton said quietly into his communication device. "Split into pairs. Place the jammers and sound emitters. Drive them toward the central basin." The team separated. Russell and Martinez headed east, placing sound emitters behind rocks. Wade and Collins went west, while Harris and Foster took a narrow path up a cliff face. Garcia and Kim circled behind a large boulder, ready to spring the first trap. Patton found a high point and pulled out a small device Dr. Miller had given him, a heat detector that could spot Vraxian body signatures through rock. 8 red dots moved on the small screen, spreading out in a standard search pattern. "They're using textbook tactics," Patton murmured. "Predictable." On the other side of the canyon, Commander Drax watched his own tactical display. 8 green dots represented his warriors as they hunted through the canyon. "Find the humans quickly," he ordered. "Remember, they are fragile. 1 hit is enough to disable them." His warriors clicked in acknowledgement as they spread out. The first, named Krell, rounded a rock formation and spotted movement ahead. He rushed forward, all 4 arms ready to grab his prey. But when he reached the spot, he found nothing. A small pebble-like object sat on the ground. He leaned closer to examine it. From their hiding spot above, Garcia and Kim watched the confused alien. The sound emitter had worked perfectly, drawing the Vraxian away from his team. Now, Kim whispered. They activated their jammers and dropped down from above, landing on either side of the surprised warrior. The alien was fast, spinning to face the threat, but they were ready. Garcia fired a shock dart that struck the alien's neck joint, one of the few vulnerable spots they had identified. Krell stumbled, his movements becoming jerky as the electrical charge disrupted his nervous system. Kim swung her stun baton, striking precisely at the back of his head crest. The Vraxian collapsed. First one down, Garcia reported into his communicator. Across the canyon, Drax received a warning signal. Krell's life signs showed he was incapacitated. Impossible, Drax hissed. Rendezvous at Sector 4, no one hunts alone. But his order never reached the other warriors. The communication jammers blocked his signal. In the narrow eastern passage, Martinez pressed herself against the red rock as a Vraxian warrior passed below her position. The alien was scanning ahead, unaware of the threat above. Russell, hiding behind a boulder 30 feet away, gave the signal. Martinez dropped, landing on the Vraxian's shoulders. The alien roared, reaching up to grab her, but she had already jammed her stun baton into the joint where his exoskeleton met his neck. The warrior thrashed, throwing her off, but the damage was done. As he turned to attack, Russell emerged and fired 3 shock darts in rapid succession at the exposed underside of the alien's arm joints. The Vraxian collapsed, twitching. Second one down, Russell reported. Drax's display showed another warrior disabled. He slammed his fist against a rock in frustration, cracking the stone. "Find them!" he roared into his communicator. No response came. "Warriors, respond!" Silence. Understanding dawned on him. They're jamming our communications. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. These humans were not fighting as expected. The exercise continued for another 30 minutes. One by one, the Vraxian warriors fell to carefully planned ambushes. They were stronger and faster, but the humans never engaged them directly. Instead, they used the terrain, working in perfect coordination to separate, confuse, and disable the aliens. 6 Vraxian warriors were down. Only Drax and his lieutenant Vorg remained. "They are everywhere and nowhere," Vorg said, his back pressed against Drax's as they moved through the canyon. "This is not honorable combat." "This is not combat at all," Drax snarled. "This is trickery." They reached the central basin, a wide open area surrounded by high cliff walls. As they entered, Drax felt something wrong. It was too quiet, too exposed. "We should not be here," Vorg warned. Too late, Drax realized they had been herded to this spot. Sound emitters activated all around them, creating phantom movements and echoes that confused their senses. From behind rocks, from small caves, from ledges above, the entire human team emerged at once. 8 against 2. "Surrender," Patton called, out, stepping forward. "The exercise is over," Drax roared in defiance. "Vraxians never surrender." He charged toward Patton, moving with incredible speed despite his massive size. Patton stood his ground. As Drax reached him, the Major sidestepped. With practiced ease, a move perfected over a century ago in the battlefields of France, Drax's momentum carried him past as Patton struck with his stun baton, hitting precisely at the neural cluster at the base of the alien's spine. Drax stumbled but didn't fall. He turned, rage in his 4 eyes. "You cannot defeat me!" "I already have," Patton replied calmly. As Drax moved to attack again, the rest of the human team fired their shock darts together. 12 darts hit the Vraxian commander at once, each targeting a vulnerable joint in his exoskeleton. Electricity surged through his nervous system. He fought against it, taking another step forward before his legs gave out. The mighty Vraxian collapsed at Patton's feet. Vorg, seeing his commander fall, dropped his weapons and raised his 4 hands in surrender. The exercise was over. Humans had won. Back on Earth, Crowds gathered in city squares watching the broadcast erupted in cheers. In the command center, General Carter allowed herself a smile as the final results came in. The next day, a Vraxian diplomatic ship landed outside the United Nations. Ambassador Cragg emerged, his posture noticeably less arrogant than before. General Carter and Patton met him on the steps. "Your demonstration was educational," Cragg said, the translator making his voice sound subdued. "The High Command wishes to express its reconsideration of Earth's status." "We're glad to hear it," Carter replied. "What does the High Command propose now?" "An alliance," Krog said. "Equal terms, exchange of knowledge and technology. The Vraxian Dominion would be honored to have Earth as a partner, rather than a protectorate." Carter glanced at Patton, who nodded slightly. "We accept," she said, "as equal partners." As they walked into the United Nations building to formalize the agreement, Cragg turned to Patton. "You knew we would underestimate you." "It's an old human strategy," Patton replied. "Let your enemy believe you're weaker than you are." "Pride blinds judgment. My son has requested to study human military tactics," Cragg said. "He has never been defeated before." "Tell him I'd be happy to teach him," Patton said. "There's an old saying where I come from. Wars may be fought with weapons, but they are won by men. Or in your case, by Vraxians. The principle is the same." Later, as Earth celebrated its new status among the stars, Frank found Patton standing alone in the Pentagon courtyard, looking up at the night sky where Vraxian ships now orbited not as threats, but as allies. "What happens now?" Frank asked. "Will you go back to your time?" Patton shook his head. "There's no way to return safely. Besides, my work there was done." He pointed to the stars. "My new mission is up there. Humanity will need guides as we take our place among the stars. The Patton Corps has a nice ring to it," Frank suggested with a smile. "Earth's first interstellar military force." Patton nodded, his eyes fixed on the distant points of light. "The Vraxians learned what countless enemies have discovered throughout human history," he said quietly. "Never judge humans by our fragile bodies. Judge us by our unbreakable will." Above them, the stars shimmered with promise and possibility. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and proven its worth. And it had all begun because aliens had mocked Earth's weakness until Major George Patton arrived.